I'm not a lawyer, but I just read the 25-page lawsuit that TD Jakes has filed against another pastor, of whom I've personally never heard of. But child, let me recap this lawsuit because y'all done pissed the man of God off. Can I say that? So the lawsuit was filed by Thomas Dexter Jakes. I didn't know that was his middle name. And it's filed against a man named Duane Youngblood and 10 John Does. And remember, John Does are listed when the plaintiff doesn't know the actual names of who they need to sue. So those are placeholders until they find out the names and the lawsuit gets updated. The beginning part of this lawsuit goes into more detail about who TD Jakes is, saying that he is the visionary, charismatic, and devoted senior pastor of the Potter's House Church in Dallas, Texas, which has a global reach and congregation exceeding 80,000 people, a best-selling author of 30 books, a Grammy Award winner, a global humanitarian, and one of the most prominent and well-respected pastors and religious figures in the United States today. In stark contrast to that is the description of Duane Youngblood, which says that Youngblood is registered as a lifetime offender and is currently under supervision by the state's Department of Parole with his parole number listed. It says that Youngblood has repeatedly and uncontrollably assaulted young children since at least 2012. And on all occasions, he's apparently pled guilty and admitted to these heinous crimes. The suit gives a specific example from 2006 when Youngblood was a pastor and was arrested on charges of assault and corruption of minors having to do with allegations that he assaulted a child while he was counseling him. Did I say trigger warning? I should have said trigger warning. Trigger warning. In 2014, according to this TD Jakes lawsuit, Youngblood was charged with touching some teens again during some counseling sessions. And for one of those teens, it was said to have happened about 25 different times. Now, for those charges, it says that Youngblood pled guilty and was sentenced to 16 to 48 months in prison and 3 years of probation. Now that you have that context, let's go on to the reason that TD Jakes is actually suing him. And it has to do with some interviews that Youngblood did on Larry Reid Live. The first one was from October 28th of this year. And it says that about 1 hour into the interview, the conversation turns to TD Jakes. Now, I haven't listened to the interview, but according to this lawsuit, Duane Youngblood says that when he was 18 or 19, he's 58 now, he and TD Jakes were at the home of an elder clergywoman where Jakes had been staying. And then, quote, after sitting there and having this long discourse with him, I finally looked at my watch and I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to go. I got to get this car back to my mother. She's going to kill me. So I said to Bishop, I got to get up. And I got up from the table. He got up from the table. He walked around toward the way I had to exit quicker than I got over there. And when I started to walk past him, he pulled me to himself, wrapped his arms around me, and tried to kiss me. And in that moment, I literally died. Youngblood then said, quote, in the morning, I step into our bathroom and my home phone rings. My mother answers the phone and she says to me, Duane, it's Elder Jakes. Jakes and I get on the phone, and when I get on the telephone, I can hear water. He is sitting in a bathtub. And in that thing, he says to me without any hesitation, there's 3 things I need you to do. The first one is, when I come to Pittsburgh, you're going to be the only person I sleep with. The second one is, you can't sleep with anybody else because I don't want to give my wife anything. And thirdly, I will take care of you for the rest of your life. Child, what is happening? In this same Larry Reid Live interview, Youngblood says that a few years later, he has the opportunity to confront TD Jakes about what happened, to which he says Jake responded saying, my stock was rising and I would have engaged with anybody at that time. You know, I said I haven't watched that interview and I don't think I'm going to. Nope. Now, about 1 week after this first Larry Reid interview, Youngblood goes back again for a second interview. And he basically doubles down on everything he said the first time. He said, quote, what may have been misunderstood is that Bishop Jakes got up, came around that table, and positioned himself in the corner that I had to walk past. When I was walking past that corner, he grabbed me. There is no reason if you're going to just give me a hug as we're leaving to go to the door with me and let's hug it out and let me go out the door. We are not at the door. We are still in the dining room. And he is in the corner, grabbed me to himself, looked down into my face, and then tried to bend his head down to kiss me on my lips. That is not a you didn't get what you wanted to get. The lawsuit highlights a couple things that Larry Reid said during the interview, including, quote, Bishop Jakes violated groomed you. And then another quote saying that Youngblood felt honest to him and that he wasn't mad or trying to get somebody back. He just was telling his story. But TD Jakes says none of Youngblood's story is true. He says he never kissed him, never tried to kiss him, never cornered him or forced him into any situation. In fact, he says Youngblood is accusing people of the very things he himself has done. He's trying to blame other people for his own criminal predatory conduct after finally being released from prison as a 2-time convicted felon and lifetime registered offender. The lawsuit mentions that clips from this interview have gone viral, causing TD Jakes monumental financial harm, and that Youngblood's lives have put into jeopardy the critical philanthropic missions that TD Jakes spearheads, which is now significantly impacting the people who receive all of those efforts. The suit also talks about how all of this has impacted TD Jakes' mental and physical health, noting that on November 24th, the day before this lawsuit was filed, TD Jakes suffered a medical crisis on stage in the middle of his church service. So all of this amounts to why TD Jakes is now suing Duane Youngblood for defamation, and the second cause of action in this lawsuit is for civil conspiracy, and that's against Duane Youngblood as well as those 10 John Does, which basically just means that he's alleging that Youngblood and these John Does worked together to publish these false claims about TD Jakes, knowing that making these claims on this platform would reach a large audience and in turn harm TD Jakes. So that's it. I don't really have an ending because this was wild, so I guess we'll see what happens.